Welcome everybody to our biggest fourth women's network for the social enterprise mark. It's great to see so many of you here and people from all over the world. So I will get everybody to just quickly introduce themselves, not too many words because we won't have much time given how many of us there are. It's really nice to see so many. Just as a little reminder for those of you that haven't been to our women's network before, we started this last year, care of Pauline Gannon, who's here, and Julie Hawker, who's also here, who came to us and said it would be really good if we could get more involvement and understanding of women's leadership issues in social enterprise. It seems to be a real gap. So we decided to fill the gap. It's a very informal format at the moment. I've just explained it's a quick pitch around the room, listen to our speaker, who's Kresse Wesling, who we're very pleased to have this morning. I'll go on to just introduce her very briefly in a minute, but I think it'd be quick if we can just do the quick whiz around the room to introduce people. So if I start with you, Pauline.
Yes. Hi everyone, Pauline Gannon, and I am the co-founder of Social Impact Ireland. I am based in Ireland, currently sitting in County Tipperary in my back garden in my new office that doesn't have painted walls. What we're about, our mission, particularly over the next 3 to 5 years, is really just to support positive social impact, highlight positive social impact, and put positive social impact at the heart of all business models right across the board. So really lovely to meet you all this morning and looking forward to the talk.
Thank you, Pauline. Sam?
Sorry, unmute myself. I'm Sam Peplow from Yateley Industries for the Disabled Limited, based in Hampshire in England. And we are a supported business and social enterprise that provide accommodation and employment for people with disabilities.
Thanks, Sam. Sarah?
Yes, hi, I'm Sarah Burgess. I'm on the board of SEMKIC and I have a few years background in working with social enterprise.
Thank you. Sally?
Hello everybody, I'm Sally Ryan. I'm working with Social Enterprise Mark as their business development manager while Rachel is on maternity leave. So working with Mark holders and those that wish to join the Mark holder family of social enterprises.
Thank you, Sally. Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie Hawker. I'm Joint Chief Exec at Cosmic, social enterprise based in East Devon, but working across the southwest of the UK, providing digital inclusion projects and with 25 years in social enterprise under my belt.
Thank you, Julie. Emma?
Hi, good morning. My name's Emma Lower. I'm Chief Exec of Lendology CIC. We're a social enterprise lender. We lend funds on behalf of local councils to people who want to make home improvements, so home improvement loan provider. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Emma. Jenny?
Hello everyone, I'm Jenny. I'm project lead for C3, Companies Creating Change, based here in Dubai, and I'm representing Medea, our co-founder today. So C3 is UAE-based social enterprise supporting impact entrepreneurs across Middle East, Africa, and Turkey in unlocking their growth potential and maximizing their impact on the community. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Jenny. Jess?
I'm Jess Hollyland. I work for the School for Social Entrepreneurs and the Social Enterprise Network in Plymouth. I also run my own business and sit on a few chairs.
Thanks, Jess. Sarah?
Hi, good morning. I'm Sarah Stevenson. I'm Head of Careers, Enterprise Employability at Plymouth Marjon University, and I'm a board member for Plymouth Social Enterprise Network as well.
Thank you. Joy?
Hi, so I'm Joy Tweed, Senior Lecturer at University of Westminster, course leader for hopefully soon to be launched MSc Social Enterprise. Great interest in leadership, and external to my university work, I sit on a couple of boards.
Thank you. Louise?
Morning. Yeah, I'm down in Plymouth. I'm one of the board members for Plymouth Social Enterprise Network, and I do PR and communications, particularly with social enterprises and charities.
Thank you. Sharon, welcome for you night owl again from Australia.
Hello everyone, thank you Lucy. I'm Sharon Zivkovic. I've got a couple of social enterprises. I'm the CEO of Community Capacity Builders and Chief Innovation Officer at Wicked Lab. They take a systems and complexity theory approach to social entrepreneurship, which is taking off over here in Australia. I've also got a couple of academic roles and some sector building roles. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And Sarah Osterholzer.
Thanks, Lucy. Morning, everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm one of the co-founders of the Good Business Club, which is a social enterprise aiming to support first-time entrepreneurs who are trying to change the world by helping them tap into the experience and expertise of others who've done it before.
Thanks, Sarah. And Linda?
Hi, I'm based in London. I'm the former Vice-Chancellor of Ravensbourne University, London, which I believe is still a mark holder, although not for much longer. I also sit on many chairs. I like that description. I chair the Social Enterprise Mark CIC, and I also chair another CIC, Visit Greenwich, based in London. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. And we have Kamala as well. Welcome, Kamala. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Sorry to join late. I'm Kamala Pillay. I'm CEO of Symphonia for South Africa. We are, of course, a South African-based organization.
Yeah. And Kate, I think, is driving, so I won't ask her to speak and drive unless she really wants to. Don't want to cause an accident. Alison, are you there? Or are you? Oh, she is. Yeah.
I am. Sorry, I'll put my video on for a second. I've got some broadband problems this morning, so that's why I've switched video off. But Alison Smith, I'm the interim CEO at Roots Human Resources. We're a social enterprise, and we deliver HR services into the social sector within the UK.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And we've got even more. I've got a whole screen full now. So I'd like to hand over to Kresse, but just to say before I do hand over, it's really great to have her on this call. A lot of people have actually emailed me to say how much they wanted to hear you speak, Kresse. Your story has been an inspiration, I think, to a lot of women. She's a multi-award winning environmental entrepreneur. And lots of you will probably heard or seen of her amazing bags and other products that she makes from recycled industrial waste. So I will now hand over to Kresse to give a bit of a talk, and then there will be an opportunity for you to quiz her and to discuss any particular issues that come out from what she's talked about.
Good morning, everybody. So yeah, thank you for the introduction, and also it's lovely to see kind of a really different group. You know, the reason I'm here is because I met Julie back in 2007, I think, when we were asked to be social enterprise ambassadors. And at the time, I was, you know, I had started a business in 2005. I wasn't aware that it was a social enterprise. So I had a real education ahead of me. And I certainly didn't know at the time that embedding values in your business was an odd thing to do. I didn't know that, I couldn't understand that we were in a minority position. I still can't understand why we're not accepted as businesses outside the traditional business world, which I think should most of them be called state or environmentally sponsored businesses because of the level of extraction and degradation that they sort of are engaged with. But yeah, I was quite young and certainly very naive, but the primary reason for me to start a business was because I discovered London's damaged fire hoses were going to landfill, and I just couldn't accept that. When I first moved to the UK, it was 2004, and it was the first time in my life that I had any time to explore new options. I had set up a biodegradable packaging business, but largely I was moving on from that. I found a buyer for the IP in that, which everyone thinks, oh, you sold a business. Well, I sold a business for about enough money to live in London for a year in a house share in Brixton, provided I didn't even use public transport because it was too expensive. So it gives you a bit of an idea. But I started going to landfill sites. That's what I was interested in. I went to sewers. I went to waste transfer stations. These were the abandoned materials that I found really fascinating. But also fascinating was that this tiny island, which has 66 some odd million people living on it, had 100 million tons going to landfill. And that didn't make sense to me because there isn't enough space. So to go to a British landfill then was depressing. Even though we're only 40 million tons to landfill these days, it's still depressing because the vast majority of materials that we send underground or that we now increasingly incinerate are valuable and not just reusable, but reusable to such an extent and to such extreme value that the burying of them makes absolutely no sense. So we have, you know, the fire hose, the first material that I decided to take, it can't be used as fire hose anymore. Your average fire hose is 22 meters long. If it reaches the end of its health and safety life, which is 25 years, that's it, they scrap it. That's about 3 tons a year. And then beyond 3 tons, it fluctuates based on how bad it is for London, really how bad it is for the Southeast. That's my main source of hose. So some years it's up to 10 tons. After the Grenfell fire, we got 2 tons just from that event because no hose survived it. So we have this very odd relationship with catastrophe. The worse it gets, the more hose we have. And we started just with London, now we collect across the UK. And the reason I went into luxury goods wasn't because I had any particular interest in luxury. I still don't have an interest in luxury, except for the fact that I'm in the industry. So I suppose I've had to learn about it. The reason to go there was because when I fell in love with the hose, that was one thing. That's me loving it. But I have to make everyone else love it. And I think that's true of most social entrepreneurs. We have a problem that we're particularly passionate about. In order to turn that into a viable business, you have to make sure that passion spreads like a virus. You have to make sure that it is wildfire and that people feel the same way about the material that you do. And we got lucky because fire hose was a great choice. You know, it's a durable material. It's beautiful, comes in this rich, 95% of it is this rich, lustrous red color. It was a life-saving material. Firemen carried it around. You know, we got lucky. I think if I'd chosen waste NHS bedding, it might have been a slightly different pathway. But the reason to choose luxury primarily was because I read 2 reports when I started researching the material that really drove home the need to do what we do now. One was that luxury businesses like Louis Vuitton, Goyard, etc., have been using nitrile rubber for decades. This is the same material that makes a fire hose. They're generating it from new. So they are asking complex fossil fuel-based polymers to be made in order to make their goods. And here I have fire hose for free, which is the same material, except better, except a higher grade, except more durable. So that was the one reason to really think of luxury. And also, again, naively to think, well, it must be quite easy to compete with a dead French luggage maker who's just relying on PVC, you know, so there was some naivety there. But the second reason was that at the time that I started, the World Wildlife Fund published a report saying that the luxury industry had failed, you know, that none of these businesses were achieving more than a C+ when it came to environment and ethics. And for me, that meant a structural failure. So I looked at an industry that was theoretically creative or sold itself on its creativity, but actually was being primarily destructive. And I don't think you can be creative and destructive at the same time. I really don't. I'm quite happy to be binary on that one. And the second thing was that you've got all of this money, all of these profits being made, and effectively you've got a supply chain that you're not aware of. People are being treated awfully, and you're just the pace, the processes, the raw materials you're using you're causing environmental degradation. So that was the reason to do it. We had no money. We set up the business with £40. We bought with that money basically an electric pizza cutter that helped us to cut the hose. We cleaned it in bathtubs. We only made belts. Again, you know, the donating 50% of our profits to the firefighters charity was probably, that's why that for me is another reason to run the business, because it's interesting and exciting. But also that's probably why the business succeeded. You know, I've had so many questions since then saying, can you shrink the donations? That seems like an awful lot. The amount of goodwill we get as a result of these donations far outstrips any donation we could possibly ever make. And that's what traditional enterprise just doesn't seem to understand, is that karma is real. Is that the more you give, the more you receive in return. And the happier everyone is, because it's all real, it's all authentic. None of it is for the sake of marketing. So £40, bought a rotary cutting tool, started making belts. Belts became popular. Belts started being picked up and put in magazines like Vogue. And then we went from being these weirdos with the fire hose to being, what was it, in 2011, the head of Walpole, which is the industry body for British luxury, called us the future of luxury, which was terrifying because there was only 2 of us in the business at that point. And I thought, God, if you're going to put the whole future of your industry on us, then this industry has big, big problems. And it did, and it does. But yeah, we started with 1 material and we very organically grew to take 15. From a finance perspective, which is something that I've been asked to talk about, we only ever bought equipment when we had money to buy equipment. We didn't ever have any loans, and we never took investment, and I don't know if we ever will, because it just would have crippled us. It would have crippled us with people who didn't want to give 50% of profits to charity, and who didn't want us to expand beyond wallets and wash bags, because those are real profit center items. And we wanted to do more than that. We always had more ambition than that. So I think that we were happy, you know, a lot of businesses, everyone wants you to go through this 10x growth. Well, why? I think we're a very oddly growth obsessed economy that really shouldn't be, because it doesn't, unless it has a purpose, and that purpose is making the world better for other people's grandchildren, I don't see the point in growth at all. In fact, I think you should stop growing right now and start either switching your business model or changing how you do things. So yes, we were slow. Things have started to accelerate, let's say in the last 5 years, and that's because the market has shifted. So now all the brands say they're sustainable. Offering something eco has to be part of your collection. There isn't a single luxury business that isn't trying to do in some way what we do. But luckily, we've continued to innovate. And our latest innovation, which I'm more than happy to talk about, is that over the last 2 years, we've done two really cool projects. We designed and built a solar-powered microforge in order to collect aluminium waste and turn it into hardware. The reason we've open sourced this forge is because aluminium waste is everywhere globally, and we don't think it's appropriate for us to own and sell a technology that could be useful to communities everywhere. We've designed it to be cheap. We've designed it to be safe. We've designed it to be iterated on by different communities who face different waste challenges. The second really interesting thing that we've done is we've relocated our business to a farm in Kent. And the reason we've done that is because I don't think it's enough to talk about net zero. I think we all have to think about how we can be net regenerative, which means how can we fix the biodiversity crisis and how can we solve the climate crisis. And I don't think you can offset that. I don't think you can outsource that to another business to do on your behalf. You know, I can't be mean to Elvis and then just pay one of my friends to be nice to their partner. I can't offset that. That's not how it works. I have to actively be nice myself. And for us, the reason to come to a farm was because we wanted to get to grips with soil health, carbon sequestration into the soil, understanding the food system. And it's only 17 acres, but it's highly experimental. So we're doing all kinds of crazy things like holistic planned grazing, which isn't crazy, totally rational. No sides, no isers, only home built compost, also made from waste. And so far, so good. You know, I think the best news for us was that our first soil study showed that we had, because the previous owners were turf cutters, like they sold their topsoil, we had literally the worst soil ever. We had none. We had no worms. We had no microbiology. We had no organic matter, which means the only way from here is up, which means that all of the data that we share transparently, again, within the farming community will be valuable, because we'll show that from nowhere and from just taking a soil first, environment first approach, you can actually save money and increase your yields and increase your profitability. And yeah, for the crop, we're growing grapes, we'll be making wine 2025 and onwards. Feel free to come by. That'll be the most interesting time to come. But yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
That's great, Kresse, and I think you do echo some of the words of our previous speaker, Vicky Saunders, in talking about growth and this obsession that we have with growth. And she talked about not scaling up, scaling out, and looking at sustainability and how you know, so investment is always kind of growth aimed, and this challenge with the sort of venture capital culture. I wondered, just to kick off, because I know lots of other people will have questions, but I'll just get one in. And before, have you been approached by any of the sort of social investors? And if you have, you know, why have you turned that down?
Yeah, I mean, over the years we've been approached multiple times. I think in the early years, I don't think there was enough aligned capital available. I don't think that's true now. I think there's a lot of really interesting people in social investment now that just didn't exist 15 years ago. However, for us, cash isn't necessarily a problem. You know, we give 50% of our profits to charity, but the other 50%, because we live a very low profile lifestyle, I suppose, has been retained. So all the farm, all the investments we're making here, we are able to finance that through business savings. And I think we would only take on investment if, exactly as you say, we wanted to scale out. Because, yeah, I just don't accept, there's this really weird thing about money. I don't understand why you should be able to park your money somewhere and it should make money for you. I sort of think it should have something to do with effort. And the way that our capitalist system is structured, where money makes money all by itself, doesn't really help with reducing inequality. So I've got that problem as well. You know, I'm a circular economy entrepreneur. I think everything should be used in perpetuity, including money. And right now, the way investment is structured, it sort of favors the hoarding of money. So I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about that. But it's not good. It's not great.
Totally get you there. I think Jess has a question. She's just put one up in the chat.
I did. I was being helpful and putting it in the chat. I was just thinking that the whole flooding of greenwashing thing, we're coming up against it all the time. And in social enterprise, it's really frustrating because these guys have been doing it for a long time. They're there, they're authentic, they're sincere. And now all of a sudden we've got the big guys coming in and just blocking the view almost.
Yeah.
So you talked about being innovative. I wondered how it's going for you and what you're doing to help sort of sidestep them so that you're still visible.
Well, so we're lucky to an extent because we established the brand at a time when no one was really working like this. So we now have this like groundswell of support where people understand who we are and what we do and why it's different. But yeah, the greenwashing is only going to massively intensify in this space because you think of, and it's not just in fast fashion. There's so many companies where about 2% of their collection is in any way decent. And it represents 95% of its marketing. Saudi Aramco, which is an oil company, does literally 0.5% renewables. 95% of their marketing is about that, the renewables effort they make. So will there be legislation to fix this? I don't know. It's even hard within the green space itself. You know, we're also a B Corp, and there's 1 or 2 B Corps that are causing huge problems for the rest of the community because they're not being truthful to the spirit of the community, and they're not being honest about what about the difference between their intentions and their actions. And that's one thing that I've always loved about social enterprise is that actually, you know, within the social enterprise space, I think there is I've just never been met with anything other than total honesty and total transparency and a commitment to help each other out. How do we combat greenwashing though? You just have to call it out, and you have to find ways of calling it out that don't make you sound bitter, because that turns everyone against you. So we had, there is a luxury business who is doing some very dodgy things at the moment. And rather than sort of calling them out publicly, there was 4 social entrepreneurs like myself who sent a letter to the CEO, just pointing these things out and saying, hey, you know, there's a lot of us who know how to do this. We know how to do it better. We've been doing it for you know, collectively 80 years, and we can help you. And we've done it privately. So I think there's just, you know, if we don't get a response, then we'll try another way, and then we'll try another way. But yes, it's a big problem, and I'm not sure how to crack it.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about not sounding bitter, Kresse, because we have that challenge with the social enterprise mark as well, where we see, you know, others outside of the social enterprise world calling themselves social enterprises, but then behaving in ways that perhaps don't fit with our values. So I totally get your issue there, and yeah, we try and work as positively as we can, but it is a challenge. I think when you say about calling it out, it's like, how do you do that in a way that doesn't make you sound like, you know, it's sour grapes, if you like. So yeah, big challenge there. I think Julie has a question.
Hi Kresse, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Lovely to catch up. Kresse, I'm just interested in your view. We would have shared views on this one many years ago, but what's your latest opinion on the need to support women in social enterprise from your experiences, and you know, any thoughts you've got on the best ways of us supporting each other and aspiring women coming up through, you know, to lead social enterprises?
So I think this is really interesting, because there's been, you know, between when we met and now, there's obviously been 2 decades of a changing generation, and there's a lot of young women who don't have the same issues with setting up businesses that I would say that my mother's generation have or had. So there is a shift. It's not perfect though, because it really is great for women who come from, let's say, very supportive families, or having had a really good education, or that network behind them, which is true for all entrepreneurs. The vast majority of entrepreneurs come from the middle class because they come from places where they've got a fallback in case things go wrong. So we have to recognize that as really true. Like, there's the standout stories of someone who came from an orphanage and nothing to start a global business. These are sort of gold dust stories. But my way of supporting it is that I'm always mentoring about 4 or 5 women at a time. And I have sort of rolling relationships with them where they can call me whenever they want for whatever they might be working on. So I do think it is the role of women in social enterprise to support other women in social enterprise. But again, I also think it's quite important to collaborate with other women-led businesses. So, you know, there's an amazing social enterprise, a fashion business called Birdsong, which we just did a photo shoot with them. And I love their business model. I love the way they're structured. I love that they're female founded. And I love that there's sort of no issues with celebrating that. But I'm also kind of thinking, that it's still the profile of social enterprise itself that we need to raise up. You know, we need to get out of culture, media, and sport. We need to get into bays. And I think maybe the call out that needs to be made is about the fact that businesses like Amazon are state-sponsored enterprises. They're not successful businesses. So I think the focus still has to be on where the real dragons are that need to be slayed. Our local MP came to visit us the other day. And when I said, you know, she said, what do you need from me? How can I help you? I said, it'd be really great to have a carbon tax. She said, oh, but we have a carbon tax, which we don't. But, you know, instead of coming here as her authentic self, she came here to spout policy. You know, we have some implicit carbon tax on a few cherry picked goods. We do not have a carbon tax that in any way accounts for the damage that's being caused by our overuse of fossil fuels. And she didn't get that. So, you know, I think what we have to focus on the really, really big problems. And for me, that's climate change and biodiversity. That, like, I just don't, those are the two things that I focus pretty much exclusively on. And how can we structure our business to be delivering change in those areas?
Any other questions from people? There's a bit of stunned silence.
I've got a question, Lucy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting. I think it's really nice actually have really open discussion and debates of really about these questions of what it means to be a good business. I think there's so much changing in this space. But I guess, yeah, kind of bringing it back down to the really early days, what was what were some kind of key challenges that you faced that you, like, if you had kind of gone back and known something different, you might have done differently? And what really helped you on that journey as well? I know you've got a co-founder as well, so you've kind of got the team, but was there anything else that supported you along that way that made a real difference?
Yeah, I mean, I can look at so many mistakes that we made and wish that we had done things differently. But I genuinely, given the chance again, I don't think I would change those things. And the reason is that I think you're as much of a product as your failures as you are of your successes. And I'm really happy with where we are right now as a business. But I do think that what was the things that really helped me. So a lot of people, one of them was the fact that we were friendly and that we were nice. And the fact that we were friendly and nice is why we got so much support from the fire service, is why 66,000 people who are recognized as firefighters in the UK came out to share our story. It wasn't just because we gave them 50% of our profits, because in year one, that was £134. It was because we were friendly and we were engaging and we were trying and we were working really hard. So you cannot ever underestimate the value of being kind, because that really, kind and engaging and friendly, that just has always helped us. The second thing that helped for sure was that, I was offered this chance to become a social enterprise ambassador. Suddenly there was 29 other ambassadors many of whom I looked up to, all of them who I looked up to, all of them who I could learn from, all of them who you could talk to in confidence about an issue that you were facing. So having a network like that, none of us had business, our businesses were not related to each other. So none of that mattered. It wasn't industry specific. It was just that we all had to focus on impact, and that meant we could all help each other. So I think these kinds of networks are incredibly valuable. especially when you have a chance to eat together and drink together and really bond. Because without that personal level of connection, I think networks are just a bit too transactional. Like I don't even think I've ever worked with another social enterprise ambassador. I don't think there's ever really been, but it's not about that. So I think you have to work on your, who's your support. And yes, I have a co-founder, and yeah, he's genius and he's amazing. And, he's gone from being a London city boy to someone who knows every single name of every single microorganism that's crawling around in our soil. So, how do you find a person who's that versatile and is that up for a challenge and really wants to support absolutely everything that you do? Well, I'm not the first person to say that the biggest choice a woman ever makes in her life, whether it's a male or a female or whatever, is the partner you choose to go through life with. That's a big decision. And if they're not supportive, I don't know how anybody gets anything done.
It looks like Sharon's got a question for you, Kresse.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading the chat now. It's great to see Daniela Pappy's name. So the social enterprise sector in Australia is starting to move away from an enterprise to a systems change focus. Are you finding increased? Yes. And that's because of, I think a lot of social entrepreneurs are incredibly impatient. We want to grow like other people, but we want to grow impact. And the best way to grow impact is through systems change. So that's why I think you're seeing lots of really fascinating collaborations. You're seeing people working together in totally new ways. There's I know of a social enterprise that is focusing basically all of their energy, all of their marketing. So instead of selling goods, they're now connecting people to local sources of wind power generation. I think that that's also focusing on systems change is what makes it increasingly exciting for everyone in this space, because we all know that you can be none of us are the bull in the china shop, but you can be a fly in the nose of the bull and have just as much impact on the china shop. So yes, I think that is really happening. And the more we can foster these kinds of really dramatic collaborations, that should help to raise the profile of the sector and what people's understanding of what we can do and what our impact can be.
That's good, because I've got a conversation going with Danny Pepe Thornton coming up, so she might be one of our next speakers. I watched her TED talk. I thought it was really inspirational. So thanks to Sharon for that. I also, Julie and I and some other women in Devon have been coming together on similar lines to what you've been saying, Kresse, to support one another. And I think especially over this time of COVID, it's been quite hard to reconnect and to remember how to connect. But that gives us a time to maybe refresh how we connect and think a little bit more about whether we can do things slightly differently. And certainly, I've had Jess has been helping me through things like action learning sets as well, which I think are another really good way of kind of really intensely interrogating what our issues are and how we can collectively support one another to address some of the challenges that we're encountering, certainly at the moment when it's some of the challenges have been a bit unseen. I wondered, or a bit different really, I wondered if you'd got any thoughts, any lessons that you've had from the last 18 months that have really struck you, as a I mean, obviously you've been holed up in your farm, so probably it's, I know you said it was pretty much business as usual, but have there been things that you think have changed as a result of COVID?
Yeah, yes. So I used to travel a lot, and I was certainly in London 3 or 4 days a week. I was constantly on trains. The to be really honest, the first week of lockdown, which Elvis and I instituted a week before the government, because we met each other during SARS in Hong Kong. So we kind of thought this was going to be a big deal a little bit before Boris did. But we went for a couple of really long walks, and we had this amazing opportunity to just think about, okay, well, what are our priorities? If this is as bad as SARS, could have been, and it, you know, turns out it was worse in some ways, better than we anticipated in others. I mean, we were doing instant calculations thinking 2 million people in the UK were going to die within 6 or 8 months. That was the sort of calculation. We were looking at the worst case scenario, CDC stuff. And we thought, well, what are the real priorities? What do we want to do? That was why we bought the farm. That was why the Solar Forge took a fast track and became open source. That was why, yes, I mean, people did panic buy handbags in the same way they seem to panic buy toilet paper, which is great because that, you know, finances everything. But a lot of the things that we were putting off, you know, I think we considered the whole farm thing to be something we were going to do in our semi-retirement. Like you'd have energy to do this when you're 65. No, you wouldn't. Especially not a hill farm. I'm basically sort of twice as fit. But we just upped the agenda. It upped the ante. I think that was the interesting thing. So a lot of people talk about how the pandemic was boring. I found it hugely exciting because we basically went back to school to understand microbiology. And I feel like a lot of things that we were going to do much, much slower, we are doing really fast.
Brilliant. I've got news for you. If you've moved to a farm, you'll never be able to retire.
No, it's great. It's great. I was never planning on retiring anyway. So this is now I've set it up. You know, I think that was the other problem with investors and us. We hadn't, you know, this one particularly obnoxious one going, but you need to have an exit strategy. Like, what's your exit strategy? And I was like, it's death. Like, yeah. Why does it have to be anything other than
that is a very good point, actually. And one that I've discussed with colleagues quite recently, you know, people that are kind of forced to think about their exit strategy the whole time, and they've only just started in their job or whatever. You know, it's like, yeah. What's going to be your exit strategy? And I think that's another one of these kind of TED type of obsessions along with growth that we always hear. Well, what is your exit strategy? And of course you do have to have an exit strategy. If you're reliant on your assumption is that you're going to make your millions and then exit your business. And I've got a cohort of businesses that I talk to regularly, and they're always talking about their EBITDA and when they're going to sell up and when they're going to retire. But there's this automatic assumption that you need to be able to exit your business, and you need to know the right time to exit your business to get the maximum value. And I think, you know, just some of these assumptions need to be challenged. It's almost like, you know, this is the Bible of how you run a business.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Because when you form a lifelong friendship with someone, you don't talk about your exit strategy the first time you meet for coffee. It's not how it works. And that's really why, you know, that's maybe something that makes investment into social enterprise difficult, is because you've got a bunch of people who are absolutely married to the problem that they're trying to solve. They're not going to, these are not people who are built for backing off and running away. You know, we're not people sort of who are interested in just, oh yeah, I'll dabble in that problem for a few years and then I'll pick up something else and then I'll pick up something else. And also maybe some of us don't want to make millions because that's not really that interesting.
Yeah, so and what do you do once you've made the millions? That's the other question, because these people exit their businesses and then they're going, oh, I think I need to go and do something else because I'm really bored, you know. I've made my millions, or I'm just hanging around on a yacht or something, you know. So, and then they decide, oh well, actually maybe it's time for me to make a difference and go back into the the world sometimes of social enterprise. And that's when I think we see this big mismatch, because these people come back in with the assumptions, particularly in things like social investment, where you've got, you know, the likes of people coming from ex-Goldman Sachs, etc., with a set of assumptions about what investment is about. So it's like this kind of circle that keeps going round perpetually without, you know, without challenge.
Yeah.
I was just going to hop in there, if I may, Lucy and Kresse. You've just reminded me that when we just celebrated 25 years at Cosmic, and for the first 5 years, I'm still with Companies House. The registered company name is Project Cosmic. And for the first 5 years of the organisation, everyone kept pretending that it was a short-term thing, that we were going to have digital inclusion done and dusted, and we would all have to think of new things to do. And I reminded everyone, you know, on the 25th celebration that, you know, we're in it for the long term. We're not, there's going to be a different dimension. There are going to be different groups of people we're interested in supporting, but you shouldn't have, you know, an exit strategy as part of your plan in social enterprise. You might have one that says exactly, you know, how can we widen and broaden what we're doing and make sure that we're supporting others is definitely a big theme for me at the moment. But yeah, like you say, from Project Cosmic, we dropped the project and it was never to be spoken of except as our registered company name.
It is very much like, I mean, unless we wake up in a utopia tomorrow, there's always work for all of us. That, I mean, that's sort of desperately sad, but also desperately good news, because it means that there's always things to be working on, and there's always things that need to get done.
Linda.
I really was interested to hear that you currently mentor 4 to 5 people, or you continually mentor people. And I think it's probably something that a lot of us around this call do as well, mentoring and coaching. And I was thinking, I mean, I know there was a question earlier about, you know, advice to yourself starting out, but kind of how would you advise somebody like myself who's mentoring people that are kind of at the early stage of starting up a business, and how to advise people on setting up a values-led business, because it seems there's so much advice out there for those that want to start up a profit-making business, particularly through the banks. And I'm just sort of I'm looking really for kind of solid advice that I can pass on as a mentor.
So I'm not actually a massive advice giver. And the reason why I've sort of taken maybe the mentoring style that I have is that I spent a year as where I was the like mentor in residence for the Said scholars at doing the Oxford MBA. So those that were on they were theoretically taking a lot of social enterprise coursework. So Daniela Pappy was involved in this, and none of them came to me. I mean, they were all getting a world-class MBA. None of them came to me with business problems, requesting business advice. They all had personal issues. They were issues like, my parents really want me to be a lawyer, but I want to do this. Or my partner doesn't understand why this is like mission critical for me in my life. And so the way that the relationship I tend to have with people I'm mentoring is to find out two things about them. Is like, what do they really find challenging and interesting? What do they really want to do? And how does that mesh and marry with their skills? So we're always talking about those two things. And it's like, then advice naturally flows from that. And it's not advice that I have to give, because that helps people identify the skills that they lack and the people that might need support from, the people they might need to get as partners, or the people they might need to hire. That also helps people to understand where they might want to work within an organization, or if they want to be entrepreneurs at all, because a lot of people actually think they want to be an entrepreneur, but they really, really have a very niche focus that doesn't involve VAT, tax credits, HR issues, and all the other nonsense that goes around actually being responsible for a functioning business. So I think it's often much more personal than that. And the only advice anyone ever takes is the advice they come up with for themselves anyway. So, so I think when I first started talking to people this way, I remember saying to Elvis, like, I feel a bit like a fraud because I feel more like I'm trying to channel some American drama therapist type person. But actually that's what's been the most effective, is being more of a coach and an interrogator and an emotional support. I find is what really works, because people generally know what their strengths are, generally know what their weaknesses are. They just don't know how to articulate it. And sometimes they think they know what they want to do and work on, but actually they don't, and they just need help identifying that.
That's really good and very affirming, actually. I think it's because I've recently come across and I'm mentoring a young woman. I mean, by young I mean in her 30s, and I think she's been so put off by the values in companies she's worked for that she thinks the only way now is to be an entrepreneur, is to sort of start her own thing. And maybe that is right, but I like the idea of going down a much more kind of inquiry-based process, which sounds really authentic to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you'll get a real technical question, and I'm happy to answer those if I have the answer, but often I don't. Often I don't.
Yeah, and yeah. Why should you? Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's also something that I say about a lot of students that are asked to set up their own social enterprises as well, and it's like they understand the sort of the motivations of social enterprise but don't know where to start. And sometimes I mentored somebody quite recently, a recent graduate, and she said, Lucy, I just don't know what I want to do. I think I might want to set up a social enterprise. And I said, well, do you want to do all of these things like HR, it's and finding the finance and all this jazz? And she's like, well, I'm not really sure about that. And it was actually because she wanted to go into something that made a difference. Yeah. And she's gone into a job, and she may come back to social enterprise, but, it's a really big challenge, I think, for some young people to say, oh, well, just go and set up your own social enterprise. And you have to think about not only, the kind of classic things about how you set up a business, but also how you address the kind of the triple bottom line, or, how you're going to make social and environmental difference. And it's a lot of things to think about.
It's hugely complicated, because also you don't want to be one of these sort of I don't know, 80s or 90s style social entrepreneurs that just thinks you can solve problems on people's behalves, in a very colonial kind of way. Which is definitely. You have to, the problem you're trying to solve has to kind of be one that you get and you understand. You can't do it for and on behalf of another community. But yeah, we do actually work experience as well. And I mean, COVID was tough because we couldn't do it live, but we've had a lot of people who come and work with us for a week, young people. And I would say 80% of them are like, right, I'm not ready to run a business.
Yeah.
But it does help them confirm that, or it helps them identify where they might sit within a business.
Yeah.
So I think work experience is actually, even if it's for a week here and a week there, I think is quite important.
Yeah, and I know that colleagues on this call, like Joy, will agree that's the important aspect to supporting people. The difficulty is often finding those internships or sort of work experience opportunities, and it can be quite challenging for social enterprises to take them on. We're coming to a close now. It's nearly 11 o'clock. I'd like to really thank you, Kresse, for a very honest discussion and a very open discussion. I think a lot of people have got a lot from it, and it was really very, very thoughtful. So thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll get a few hits on YouTube as well for this one. It's been really great, and I hope we can keep in contact and keep the dialogue going, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, you know, I really lovely to see all of you. Lovely to see some faces this morning.
Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.